Shalom Aleichem, and welcome back everyone. As we're marching through Chodesh Elul, and we're coming closer to Rosh Hashanah, we're now, this Shabbat, going to be reading Parashat Tavo. And the Parsha starts off that when the Jews will enter Eretz Yisrael, and they'll inherit the land, they're going to take some of the new fruit, the bikurim, the new fruit of the year, and they're going to bring it up to the Beit HaMikdash. Uvata el hakohen asher yeh bayamim mohem, and you'll come to the Kohen in those days. Ve'amarta elav, and you're going to declare, and you're going to say, Amarta elav, and you're going to say, Higati hayom la Hashem Elokechem, kivati la'aretz shenishba Hashem l'avoteinu l'teit lanu. I declare today to Hashem that I have come to the land. When we get the new fruits, we have to come up to the Beit HaMikdash and we have to thank Hashem for the new fruits. And this is done every single year. Every time you have new fruits, you say, I came today to Eretz Yisrael. Rashi says, V'amarta elav, and you're going to tell the Kohen that I'm talking to Hashem, that I'm saying that Hashem gave me the land. Why are you doing this, says Rashi? She'enecha kefui tova. So you shouldn't be considered a kafui tova, which means someone who is an ingrate, someone who doesn't appreciate the good. Rashi. Why is Rashi saying we're coming and we're thanking Hashem for giving us the fruits, and his reason is because we shouldn't be an ingrate. We shouldn't be someone who's not grateful to Hashem. Say, the reason is because we appreciate that Hashem gives us stuff. The reason why we're saying it, Rashi's explaining why we're saying this, why we're making this declaration that Hashem is giving us all these good things. Say, the reason why we're doing it is because we appreciate it. No, Rashi says the reason why we're saying it is because we shouldn't be an ingrate. So the Peninim al Torah quotes from Harav Eliyahu Baruch Finkel, Zeichet Tzadik Lebracha. He says, it's not that we shouldn't be an ingrate, that we shouldn't be ungrateful, but rather we have to understand something else. We say in the Shaharit prayer of Shabbat, Ve'ilu finu maleh shireh chayam. What are these words that we're saying, this whole paragraph? So I will read it in English. Where our mouth as full of song as the sea. Ushonenu rina ka'amon galav. And as our tongue as full of the joyous song as its multitude of waves. Right? V'siftetenu sheva kemechaber rakia. Ve'enenu me'irot kashemesh v'chayareach. And our lips as full of praise as the breath of the heavens, and our eyes as brilliant as the sun and the moon. V'yadenu ferusot kineshei shamayim. And our hands as outspread as eagles. V'raglenu kalot ka'ayalot. And our feet as swift as hinds, as deers. So if we had all these attributes, able to say so much as our lips were moving like waves, our eyes were brilliantly light, what do we say? En anachnu maspikin lehadot lecha Hashem Elokeinu. We still cannot thank you sufficiently. We cannot thank you enough. And to bless you, Hashem, al ahat me'elef alfei alafim berov ribi revavot pa'amim hatovot nisim v'niflaot she'asita imanu ve'im avotenu. For what? For even 1,000 thousands of thousands and the multitude, myriads of favors, miracles, and wonders that you performed for us and for our ancestors. What we say in the prayer on Shabbat is, if we would try to give thanks to Hashem, and our lips would move forever, and our eyes would be showing appreciation, it would never be enough. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you everything. You can only attempt to say thank you. You're never going to reach the level where you said sufficient thank you to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You can never get to the level to say thank you to Hashem completely. We can only attempt to say. We can only try to be the reason why we're saying thank you, because we never can say thank you fully. But we cannot be kefui tova. We cannot be someone who's an ingrate. That's why we try to say thank you. But in the end, we're not really saying a full thank you. But in order not to be an ingrate, we'll try to say some of it. And so we say, today we've come and we're declaring that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Eretz Yisrael, and He gave us these beautiful fruits. He's watched us and protected us and brought us up to here and continue to protect us. This is a very, very important idea. Because, Rabotai, the truth is, we all know that Hashem has given us a lot of good things. But what do we do with those good things that Hashem has given us? How do we say thank you with the myriads of things that Hashem has given us? There's a story in the Peninim al Torah. I think the story some of us may have heard in the past, but a story nonetheless that has a very deep impression on us, should make a very deep impression of us, a very deep understanding on life. There was a young girl, very good midot, very nice girl, but unfortunately, she was born blind. And now she was in the Parashat of the Shidduchim. She was trying to get married, and she was finding it rather difficult to find someone who would want to be her husband. A lot of people didn't want to deal with someone who's blind. They need someone who can take care of the house, look around, do things. Until one day she found the perfect man. He was a man who was learning in yeshiva. He had a lot of midot himself. He was a good guy, good character traits. And at first it bothered him that she was blind, but once he met her, he said, anything that's wrong with her, the person, she's amazing. So what her eyes don't see. She's an amazing person. And they got married. And they were married for a few years. And one day the husband comes home, and the husband says, I was reading a news article, and they say that in Cleveland, at the Mayo Clinic, they've now able to do eye transplants. Take someone's good eyes, someone who passed away, take their good eyes, and put into someone who was born blind. I know how much you've always wanted to see. I think that's worth it to go there and to try to do it. And so they travel all the way to Cleveland, and they get into the Mayo Clinic, and they start to go through the tests. And they tell her that you're a candidate. You're a good candidate. This procedure would work on you. And she was so excited, davening, thanking Hashem. And then the surgeons came and said, although you're a good candidate, unfortunately, you're at the bottom of the waiting list for the eye transplants. We're estimated wait about 10 years. You can imagine how she felt. This woman who's grown up all her life blind, always had trouble, there was people looking at her, picking on her, whatever it was. And now she was so close to having her eyes to be able to see, and they tell her they got to wait 10 years. And she left devastated. She came home crying, weeping. And the good husband that he was, he told his wife, let me go back and see what we can do. He goes back to the clinic himself, and at the end of the day, he comes back and he tells his wife, I have great news. I was able to fight for you, and they're going to do the surgery for you this week. She thought he was playing around. He says, I'm serious. And he tells her the appointment, the date, and everything. And they come to the appointment. And she goes into surgery. She's so excited. And she comes out of surgery. And the first day, she's able to see finally, but it's all blurry. And after a few days, her eyesight becomes back. For the first time, she's able to see. Imagine someone who never can see in their life. For the first time, they're seeing. How excited, how much, it's stuff that we take for granted we can see. Someone who couldn't see, and now all of a sudden sees. And she's looking around, and her husband's not there. Where's my husband? Oh, he had to leave. He said he had to take care of something, but he left a letter for you. So she takes the letter, opens up the envelope, and she starts to read. And in the letter, the husband writes, I'm sorry I had to leave to take care of a few things, but all this time we were always worried about you and about your eyesight. But the truth is, she says, I'm also blind and I can't see. And at this point, her heart fell. And she said, what? I was planning to go see the world, go see London, go see Israel, go see all these places in the world the first time I can see. And now I found out that my husband can't see. No, she tried to be optimistic. She said, it's okay, we'll figure it out. They finally get together, and she's having a very hard time. She thought she was out from this blind business. And she can see, he can see, they're going to live a normal life. And now he's blind. And after a month or two, she tells her husband, I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you. I want to live life to the fullest. So many years, over 30 years, I've lived life blind. I cannot deal with blind anymore. I'm done. I'm out. I'm leaving. The husband didn't say anything. The next morning, she wakes up. She sees the husband's not in the house. And again, she sees a letter, an envelope. She opens the envelope and she reads, my dear wife, I want to thank Hashem for the time that I shared with you. And I don't want you to leave because of you've suffered so much in your life. So instead, I moved out. And I'm taking my wonderful memories of the time we spent together. I have only one favor to ask of you. Please take care. Take great care of your new eyes, because your eyes were once mine. He gave his eyes to his wife. And what'd she do with them? Said sayonara.
One I give. Yeah.
and she wants him out. It's a very sad story, right? It sounds very tragic. The guy tried his best. But we have to ask ourselves, aren't we doing the same with Hashem? Hashem gave us eyes. How are you using them? Hashem gave you mouth. How are you using them? Hashem gave you hands. Hashem gave you feet. Hashem gave you the power of thought. Are we just like this person and say, goodbye, you gave it to me and I don't want to deal with you anymore? Or are we using it the right way? Are we taking great care of it? Are we thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything that we have? How are we thanking Him? By going against what He said to do? You know how far we have to thank Hashem? Rabbi Victor Miller, the Tzaddik L'Bracha, used to go for walks every day. One day, his daughter, who was already married for 40 years, sees her father coming back from the walk. She tells her father, why are you so happy today? You have a very big smile. He says, I'm thanking Hashem for that we found a good shidduch for you, he says to his daughter. She says to her father, what are you talking about? I'm married for 40 years. For 40 years already. What are you thinking, Hashem? Now. He says, I know. But at the same time, when should my appreciation for that kindness to Hashem end? Says Rabbi Miller. Some people say, okay, I said thank you today, I'm done. I'm good for life. How? He says, but how can I not say thank you? Should I have only been happy when the shidduch was made? How much more so now that you've been married for decades? I'm even more happy, says Rabbi Victor Miller. A whole different take of what it means to say thank you. We very fast forget things. You know, the mother makes a nice osher palov, and everyone eats it. Oh, God, thank you. That's it. God is ready. It's out of mind, out of sight. Nobody knows about it anymore. That's just one example, but that's human nature. But those who work on ourselves, we realize that a thank you once is not enough, but rather it's a continuous thank you. Because if we really said thank you to Hashem, which we can't, it would be impossible. Our lips would have to be moving every second. Our words have to keep coming and coming. May Hashem give us a zechut to see the good in life and to always be able to say thank you. Let's move on to our second lesson in this week's Parashat. We know we have in this week the tochecha, the rebuke, the curses that would befall the Jewish people if Chas v'Shalom v'Chas v'Chalila they didn't follow in the ways of Hashem. Curses are many that came true to the Jewish people throughout our history. But before the curses start, there's a couple of brachot. It says if you follow Hashem, then you'll get the good stuff. And there's a pasuk there that says, "Vera'u kol amei haaretz," and all the people of the land, they will see, "Ki shem Hashem nikra alecha ve'yare'u mimeka." They will see that Hashem's name is called upon you, and they'll be fearful of you. There's an interesting idea from this pasuk. There was once a Rebbe, Hasidic Rebbe, that sent two of his Hasidim to a certain village to be Mekar of the village, to make them more closer to Hashem. And these two Hasidim, they get to the village. It was supposed to be a 1 week mission to go and be Mekar of people. And it ended up being for over 6 months. And then after 6 months, they finally returned to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe says, what happened? You were supposed to be gone for 1 week, you happened 6 months. So the Hasidim said, Rebbe, we got there. We saw how far people were away from Judaism. And we said, how are we going to convince them? We're going to come and talk to them, give them dirashot. He said, you know what we have to do? We have to live the example. All the people have to see, Ki Shem Hashem nikra alecha ve'yir'u mimeka. They have to see that Hashem is on you. When they see that Hashem is with you, that you're acting in the way of Hashem, then they'll also follow suit. And so we stay there for 6 months to show them what it means to live an authentic Jewish life. And in that fashion, we were able to bring them closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Hafetz Haim once talked about a certain individual, a Hasid, who decided he wanted to change people. And so he said, you know what? I'm going to go to the biggest town where all the Jewish people live, the biggest Jewish community, and I'm going to give them speeches. And I'm going to teach them right from wrong. Ma'asur ma mutar. What's forbidden and what is permissible. And the Chafetz Chaim says the Hasid gets there. And he gets up to give a drasha, and they tell him, oh, you coming to collect money? Here's a couple of dollars. Don't talk in our shul. We don't want to listen. And so he said, I can't believe it. Maybe the big Jewish community is too big. Let me go to a little smaller town. He gets to another town, and he says, I'm here to give chizuk to the olam. And they tell him, Allah, please leave us alone. We're busy. We don't have time for magidim. We don't have time for drashot. He goes to another town, and again, nobody's even interested in listening. So he says, you know what? Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should go back to my hometown. where people know me. Maybe they'll listen. So he comes back to his hometown, he starts giving dirashot, and people start saying, who's this guy? I know him. 10 years ago he was playing ball in the park. 10 years ago he was doing this, he was doing that, whatever. Who's this guy now? He's talking. And they didn't listen to him. So he said, you know what? Maybe I should start with my family. So he comes home and starts giving dirashot to his family. And they say, Alo, please leave us alone. We're busy. We just want to eat. We want to sleep. Until he said, you know what?
Start with myself.
I'm going to start with myself. He said, instead of fixing everyone else, I'll work on myself, on my own Torah, my own Yirat Shamayim. And so he did, said the Hafetz Chaim. He became the biggest maspid possible. He learned all day and all night. He wrote many Sfarim. And one day, after he learned so much and grew so much, people started coming to him, to listen to him, to hear him, and he was able to influence all of the Jewish people. The Brisker Rav, when he heard the story, B'Shem the Hafetz Chaim, he told everybody there, and you should know, when the Hafetz Chaim says a certain Hasid, the Hafetz Chaim really means himself. He's saying a story of himself, how the Hafetz Chaim became the Hafetz Chaim. He worked on himself until everyone realized his greatness and came to learn Torah from him. Rabotai, is Elul, right? And we want to teach people right from wrong. We want people to do tshuva. You want to teach people how to do tshuva? You do the tshuva. You start acting different. You start behaving nicely. And you're going to see, people are going to see that, and they're going to follow suit. They're going to do exactly what you do. And they're going to learn from you. Bez Hashem, you should be zocher in that as well. For our last and final lesson for this week's Parashat, as we know, we have the Tochach. We have the curses, the rebuke. There's a very interesting story I saw, B'Shem Rabbi Yaakov Mutzafi, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. Rabbi Mutzafi says that there was a Jewish couple that gave birth to a baby who had an extreme case of colic. This happened in Iraq many years ago. And the Jewish baby was crying day and night. And they went to doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, to no avail. The baby just cried all night. So they started going to Mikubalim. They started going to great sages and rabbis for brachot, for kemeyas and amulets and whatnot. And nothing was helping. One day, when the mother was out with the baby walking in the marketplace, she saw what looked like a page from a Humash on the floor. So she goes, she picks it up, and she sees it's Hebrew lettering. Now, in those times, most people weren't well versed in reading, especially by the woman. She was illiterate. She didn't know what it said, but she realized it was Hebrew. So she took it off and she cleaned off the page. And she said, look, Hashem, I found this page. And I know it's from your Torah. Look how careful I am with it. Please, I think this is a segula, Hashem. You're sending me the segula to use for my baby. And so she goes home and she puts this paper, she folds it up, she puts it under her baby's crib. And for the first night, after so many months, the baby goes to sleep. The husband was waiting for the baby to cry. He says, what happened today? I'm so used to the baby crying. What happened? And the wife says, it's segula, I can't tell you. 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. And finally he said, listen, you got to tell me, how did he stop crying? What'd you do? She says, come, I'll show you. She goes to the crib, and under the crib she pulls out the page. She gives it to her husband. Her husband takes a look at it, and he starts trembling. He starts shaking. She says, what is it? He says, do you know what you put under the crib? You put the tochicha, the curses from the Torah, that if we don't listen to Hashem, that's what it says in this paper that you put underneath the baby. She says, I don't know. I don't know what it says. I know it's from Hashem's Torah. And I know Hashem's Torah is sweet. So therefore, no matter what portion of the Torah it is, it's from Hashem, and Hashem loves us. And look, it's working. Our baby is able to sleep. Wow. Another story. It was said that the Alter Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, was the regular Baal Koreh in his shul. And every year, every Parashat he would read. One year, the Alter Rebbe had to be away for Parashat Tavo. And that week, someone else was reading the Torah. The Rebbe's 12-year-old son, right, will be the next Rebbe after the Alter Rebbe, was Rav Dov Ber. And Rav Dov Ber, when he heard the other person read the Torah, his father's not reading it, not the Alter Rebbe, the other guy's reading it. When he heard him reading the Torah, with all the curses, in middle of the reading, Rav Dov Ber, 12-year-old boy at that time, started feeling so sick. He fell down. They had to take doctors to him. He was so sick. Because he heard how many curses, all the bad things that can happen to the Jewish people. So the doctors, when they're taking care of him, they asked Dov Ber, and they said to him, every year you hear Parashat Tavo. What happened this year that you fainted? You're not feeling well. No, what did he answer?
And my father read it with the...
He said, whenever my father read it, I never heard the curses. I heard sweetness. I heard Hashem's Torah. When this guy heard it, I heard curses. For the first time, I heard curses. So you have two stories that seem to be saying the same idea. One a Sephardic story and one a Hasidic story. It says that somehow the curses are actually sweetness. How can that be? But it works. Up until this year, he didn't faint. The baby, his colic went away. So I saw an amazing idea, Rabotai. If we take a look in the Parashat, it says as follows. If you listen to Hashem, Uvo alecha kol ha-berachot ha'ela. All the berachot will come to you. V'hisigucha. What does that mean, v'hisigucha? Okay, but before we translate that, let's take a look in another pasuk that talks about the curses. And it says, if you don't listen, Uvo elecha kol ha-kilalot, all the curses will come, v'hisigucha. What is this word, v'hisigucha? Twice. If you listen to Hashem, all the brachas will come, v'hisigucha. And if you don't listen to Hashem, all the curses will come. So you know what they translate? They say the word hisigucha is a lashon of grasping, of understanding, of reaching and acquiring. You see, things can come your way. It can come blessings. But how do you acquire it? How do you perceive it? Right? Someone, let's say, has example, Lamashal. Someone has 10 kids. And Hashem sends them an 11th. And he says, "Oi! So hard already, how am I going to do it? Hashem sends you a blessing." And he's complaining. How many times in life things like this happen? Hashem sends us a blessing and we complain. You see, even if a blessing comes, you have to acquire it. You have to grasp it. You have to understand it. It's the same thing with curses. When curses come, how do you understand it? Do you understand that Hashem is slapping you in the face and saying, "Hey, fix it up because I love you," like a father loves a son, fix it up? Or do you take it and say, "My father hates me, and that's why he's punishing me, and that's why he doesn't like me, and that's why he's being mean to me"? Or do we understand it as a blessing? So the idea is that blessings can come towards you, curses come towards you, but the question is, how do you acquire it? How do you see it? Do you see it like that woman and say, that I don't know which part of the Torah it is, but I know that all the parts of the Torah are amazing, are sweet. And that, Rabotai, is our task. Parashat Ki Tavo. We have to realize it's a parsha of being grateful. It's our job to look around and say how great Hashem has been to us. And even the bad things have happened, what we perceive as bad, how they were really good for us, one way or the other. How Hashem is really always looking out for us. As Hashem, with these ideas, we'll be zocher to Hashanah Tova M'tukah. So to quickly review the 3 lessons, we had lesson number 1 about gratitude, that even if we wanted to thank Hashem, we would never be able to finish. Therefore, in order to be not an ingrate, we should try, but just know you can never completely thank Hashem. And we should thank Hashem always for every tova that happened to us, now and tomorrow and the next day and again and so forth and so on. Our second lesson was, you want to make an influence in the world? How do you do that?
By a strong example.
By being that change, by being the change agent, by being the model, the role model for those people. And our third and final lesson is that blessings come our way, and other things that don't look like blessings come our way. But how do we acquire it? How do we perceive it? How do we accept it, knowing that it comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? As Hashem, wishing everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Toda Rabah.